Digital agriculture is a term we're all hearing much more frequently. It refers to a whole raft of technologies and instruments that are now coming into play in agriculture that are creating masses of digital information about farm production systems. The elements of digital agriculture aren't new. We've had harvester yield maps for probably more than a decade. We've had things like EM38 soil scans routinely used in some areas. We've even got things like the National Livestock Identification System, electronic tagging of livestock, and all those sorts of things. So that sort of stuff isn't new, but what is new is the software platforms and applications that start to integrate all that digital information into one system and utilise it to help make decisions on farms. That's where the real changes are that are occurring at the moment. If we look to the US corn sector, for example, that's probably the sector where the development is most advanced. You've got a number of competing platforms there that capture all the digital information from all the various different machinery used on the corn crop. They can integrate that with satellite imagery or drone imagery and ultimately end up with information at farmers' fingertips to help them make decisions as they go about their day-to-day business. The developments that have occurred in the Corn Belt are probably the most advanced. We are seeing the emergence of some of these technologies and platforms in Australia, but not perhaps to the same degree. Surprisingly, we're seeing probably less development of those sort of systems in industries like intensive livestock, pork and poultry, but they are starting to emerge. The big gains arising from the adoption of this sort of technology in the US are around 10 to 15% productivity gains. That's the results of surveys that have been done by groups like US universities, and it seems about half the advantages are coming from increased yield and half are coming from reduced input costs. So the use of all that information and all that technology helps to sharpen up that decision making to the degree that it delivers that sort of benefit. So it's clearly of interest to the industry in Australia to see those sort of gains being made here. We know that agricultural productivity in Australia has been flatlining, and there really is a big quest there to see where the next big growth can come from. So the real challenge in Australian agriculture is what's the best way to facilitate and speed up the adoption and the development of digital agricultural platforms. What are the tools, what are the things that are needed to make these sort of things much more viable in Australia and create the opportunities for those sort of productivity gains, particularly in things like the broadacre sector. So is it digital infrastructure? Is it the mobile phones and the satellite imagery that we need and the access to the internet? Is it software development? Is it a class of application developers that are able to develop programs that are user-friendly and beneficial on farms? Is it the integration issue? Is it storage platforms, cloud storage systems that allow multiple sorts of data to be stored and used in different applications? These are the real questions that face agriculture in Australia, and these are the questions we'll be addressing at a conference to be held in Sydney on the 2nd and 3rd of June in 2016. It will try and bring together software developers, machinery and technology suppliers, farmers, researchers and policymakers, and get some collective views together on how Australian agriculture can best advance the development of these digital systems that really do bring the promise of quite significant productivity gains. There's more details on the Australian Farmer Institute website, and I encourage everyone involved in agriculture, from the livestock, the cropping, the horticulture and the intensive livestock sector, to engage in this issue and help in the development of ways in which we can bring about a speeding up of these technologies in Australia.